Test. Kathy, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Mike, can you hear me? I understand, but we just took that off. He has to unmute himself.
Can you hear me, Steve?
Yep, now I hear you. All right, we will go
Okay.
ahead and get started.
Very good, sir. Thank you.
Okay, we're ready to go.
Good evening, everyone. I will call the meeting of the May 28, 2024 meeting of the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors to order. I will note that the board did meet in executive session at 6:15 where we discussed litigation matters related to several code enforcement matters that are proceeding to court. With that being said, Mr. Neese, please do the roll call.
Mr. Altieri,
Here.
Ms. Roberts Lightcap,
Here.
Mr. Russo,
Here.
Ms. Chanlis,
Here.
Mr. San Francisco.
Here.
Your solicitor, engineer, and manager are here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neese. We'll now move down to the moment of silence. As today is the day after Memorial Day, let's keep in our prayers those individuals who gave the ultimate sacrifice for us to be able to gather in a room like this tonight. And we'll stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
God, indivisible.
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Section 5, agenda 5.1. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor San Francisco, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Section 6, public comment for agenda items only. If there's any members of the public who have any public comment they wish to provide, please go up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Let the record reflect that there is no public comment. Section 7, minutes, 7.1. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the May 13th, 2024 meeting?
So moved.
Motion was made by
Second.
Supervisor Robert Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. I will make a brief pivot from the agenda and announce, and I'm trying to find the score here, but the Marple Newtown, thank you very much. Marple Newtown varsity boys baseball team just won 11-3 over that other town that we don't like to speak of, Radnor Township High School, to win the district championship. So that just came through, and of course I lost it afterwards. So let's remind all those people whose houses we may border that we are the champions. And better luck to them next time. Now, Section 8 reports, 8.1. Report from the police department, Chief Lunn.
Chief is on vacation this week, but if
Nothing
you
to
have any
add,
questions
support.
from his report, I'll try to answer.
Perfect. Any questions for the chief? 8.2, report from the fire department, Chief Young. Anything to add or supplement to your report? Thank you very much. 8.3, report from the public works director, Mr. Sharretts. He's unable to make it this evening as well. Any
Yeah,
questions?
he's at the Bartram Bridge meeting. He did want me to just note to you that they are moving forward with the rebidding of the Bartram Bridge project, and that they went out for stone bids. Hopefully they will come in under what would need to go out and do a formal RFP process. We should know that by the next meeting.
And that was in our packet this month, correct?
That was in your
Correct.
packet under the FYI section.
8.4, report from the director of code enforcement, Mr. Reczek.
He is on.
Nothing that.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Reczek? Seeing none, we'll go to the report from the finance department. Mr. Neese, I believe you have a report.
Yeah, so if you could go ahead and pull up that report, please, and share it on the screen. The 2024 January under finance department, that one. Thank you. So, so one of the things that I wanted to do for you, and we were going to do this quarterly, but I actually did it January through April 2024. Just kind of do a quick kind of talk about some of the issues that we are having. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is our revenues. So when you look at revenues, actual 2022, 23, and 24, you'll see we have a nice progression when it comes to real estate tax revenue. And if we were looking at this just as the graph and looking at it, we would all say, oh, this is great. What I do want to show you is on the next screen, if we look at the percentage, and if you realize 2022 is on the bottom, 2023 is in the middle, and then 2024 is at the top. Percentage-wise, we're actually behind in collections. I did do a little bit of research as to why we were behind. I believe that a good portion of that's related to our interim tax collection. There is a certain percentage of that we have not gotten at all, any of that this year, and normally we would have had at least 2 payments by this point. So we're watching that, and I just think the county is behind. I think we may have even gotten one today. So that's that. The other thing is we are having a significant number of property owners having their homes and their properties, particularly businesses, reassessed. And in that, we are seeing some give back in the assessment value. And I do think that's impacting this number as well. And I think it will throughout the year. So we're going to watch this and just see where that comes in. No alarms here, but normally we're at about 96% after we finish the first part of the year when we get through the what's considered the discount period, and we're at 92. So we're watching that and just wanted you to be aware. The next one I wanted to compare for you is real estate transfer tax versus local service tax. And for those looking at this, there's for those that need that, there's checkered and then there's stripes. The checkered is the real estate transfer. The stripes are the LST tax. What I would have you note is that both of these are down. We had projected them to be down some. I did not project them to be down as much as they are. If you look from 2022 to just even to 2024, we're looking at over $200,000 down in real estate transfer tax alone, which is kind of was anticipated based on the fact that the Lister project, as well as the project over at BPG, the homes there, most of that has been completed prior to this year. And so I expected to see that coming down. The one that's more surprising is the LST tax. And I have had actually three conversations with our tax collector, who is Keystone Collections. And I've had several conversations with them. They are actually doing some research for me. I've asked them to go back over the last 10 years, and I want to compare particularly our large taxpayers in the township. What has happened with them? That's looking at the SAPs and those kind of folks. Is that because they're allowing work from home? What's that impact? And they're also looking at are the companies rightfully deciding whether or not somebody should still be paying that tax? And so that's probably, if I had a concern for you, that would be my concern area. But I just wanted to let you know that we are looking at it.
So Mr. Neese,
Yes.
explain that if they're employed out of the Newtown Square office, or when they travel, they don't have to pay it. Can you just explain a little bit how?
Yeah, so I've asked them to look into the law for clarity, because I've heard two different things from two different sources. I've had one source tell me that if the employee comes into the office even one time a month, they would pay the LST tax. I've had another one tell me that they would only pay the LST tax for the weeks that they were in the office at least one time. So I'm asking them, and the difference in that would be whether we collected $52 or whether we collected $12, right? I mean, so there could be a difference if they're in just once a month. And so, and in some cases, I know some of our businesses have actually made the decision not to bring people in at all. AmeriHealth was supposed to bring in 1,500 employees when we first did that project. My understanding is they're somewhere down around 700-800 employees that come into the office at any given time. So that's a huge difference. But I've asked them to look at that. And once I have more information, I'll let you know. I just wanted you to see what the progression was and that we are looking into it. Did that answer your question, Mike? All right. The next thing that I have is, again, percentages. I just wanted you to see the percentage, and this is percentage versus the budget that we had for this year. As you can see, again, percentage-wise, we're significantly less than the last 2 years. Actually, we have a progression downward. And so one of two things: either we've overstated budget and what we're anticipating, or collection is behind. And so we're looking at both of those. I'm going to look now at interest, which is a positive, and that's the checkered blue boxes. As you will see, back in the first year in 2022, I think the total was about $4,000 that we collected, and because of the change in interest, we're up over 100,000 right now. So obviously that's a positive for us. But when we look at public safety revenue, which is the boxes in red or the striped boxes, you will see that the prior 2 years, we were about 520,000, 525,000. This year, we're down at 335. This is what I anticipated would happen. So this isn't so much a surprise, but it is something that I wanted you to be aware of. I will say again, though, when I'm looking at the numbers, when we look at, obviously 2020 Three, we had a huge increase of what we thought we were going to do related to the public safety. And then, but if you look at 44% versus 27%, I think that's kind of within what we would have expected, roughly a collection at this point. The interest rate, the interest is down a little bit. And so that one I am watching. But we also anticipated the interest would go down a little bit this year because we thought that interest rates would pull back some. Then finally, I just wanted to look at a total of revenue versus what our budget was. And first, this screen just talks about total revenue. Over the last 3 years, by this point, we brought in a little over 7,701,000 in 2022, and in 2023 and 2024, those numbers are almost the same number. They're 7.3, a little higher in 2023 versus 2024. But so the good news is we're about the same. If we look at the next slide, you'll see though that is a little bit lower percentage of the total budget than what we had budgeted. So I am watching that. Both are at 64%. One's just shy of 64. The other was a little less than halfway to 65%. Back in 2022, we were at 68% of budget for this point of the year. Again, that's still strong, so I'm not panicking, but I just wanted you to see a couple of the things that are going on in our revenue side and that I'm watching. Also wanted to take a look at expenses. The chart looks bigger than what the real numbers are. If you look here, it looks like you have this big increase in 2023. But if you actually look at the numbers, it was 3.16, 3.25, and then again 3.16. So those numbers are really, really close in the less than 100,000 difference in expenses of last year versus this year, and also just not much more than what we did in 2022. Percentage-wise, we're actually down about 3% over the prior year. So, and I didn't go into detail on each individual department for you because most of the departments were pretty static. Obviously, snow was up this year. We had more snow removal than we did the last 2 years. So that kind of skewed our expenses in some areas. But we also were missing several folks this year in our salaries because we have so many open spots. So that's driving things down. I think it's all going to average out at the end. I am watching though revenue versus expenses. And so we're just watching that at that point. But I just wanted you to see that and see a kind of a comparison to the last 2 years prior to this year. Any questions that you have?
Make sure that gets sent out to us.
Yes, it's now attached to the agenda, so it's open for the whole public. And
Can you
we can
just have it sent off to us?
Yep.
Any questions for Mr. Neese? All right, moving down to 8.6, report from the library director, Ms. Caruso. Do you have anything to add or supplement to your report? Thank you very much. 8.7, report from the Township Engineer, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening. Of course, I welcome any questions, and we have a few other agenda items further down for some various projects. One other item I was asked to give a little bit of update on is the Paper Mill House roof replacement project, which includes, it's essentially a replacement of the cedar shakes that are failing on the roof. We conducted back on April 29th, there's a site visit with our design team to prepare a design. They currently are working on preparing the plans for the replacement, and we're anticipating that will be done in the next week or two. And therefore, we would be intending to come before moving that project towards bid sometimes in June or into early July.
Any questions for the Township Engineer? Eric, where are we with regards to Ellis Avenue?
So we, as we had discussed before, we had a punch list of items that were put out to the contractor. The contractor came back last Monday to make a modification to the inlet, and we walked through various punch list items with them. But they have not, since that they were here last Monday, they have not returned, and we're not getting any indication that they are returning at this point. So we are now working through with how we're going to close out the project.
So has the storm inlet's been recessed or deepened or however.
Correct, the one
proper
that was
engineering
right,
phrase.
that was too high, that has been lowered down.
Was it both of them or just one of them?
It was the one that was sitting too
And
high.
when did that get fixed?
That was last Monday.
Monday.
Last Monday.
And have we seen or heard whether the rain that occurred this weekend, did that catch? Where are we on that?
I don't know that answer for sure.
Okay. Can we keep an eye out on that?
We
for the
will.
next
We
storm?
will, yes.
So just so I understand it, so which one, it was the one closest to Pine Street that was too
It-
high?
It is the one closer.
And the other one was always, was catching
It
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 already?
should drain properly.
All right. And all the properties have been restored?
Correct, there is at least some growth in all of them, yes. They've all been graded and preferably there'd be some more grass on a few of the properties, but they have all been restored.
Okay.
yes.
All right. All right. 8.8, report from the township manager, Mr. Neese.
Yeah, I just have a couple quick things. One is just to let you know on your there was some questions from the PC related to the historic preservation ordinance. And so on your next agenda, because it involves sending the solicitor to the PC or at least talking with them, I will put that on your agenda because there's potential cost. The second one that I have is just we're getting really near that wonderful time of the year where we are like looking at all our contracts. One of those is going to be the recycling contract. I probably will get that on your agenda in one of the 2 June meetings unless there's an objection. And we'll be looking for direction of how we want to send that out. If you'll recall, last time we sent it out 2 different times. The first time we went out, if I recall correctly, just for a single collection like we're doing now, 2 times a month is how it comes out, or whether we went out once a week. We went back out, I think, for the second time, did it, and we found out that we ended up paying more to do the 2 times a month versus the every week. Let me say that again. Went up on the second bid out from what the first bidder was, but we wanted to go ahead and just know I'm going to be putting that on the agenda. So if any direction that we'll be looking for when we put that on your agenda, so you know that what we're looking for is whether we're going to go out for 1 time a week or whether we'll continue 2 times a month. If I think I'm saying that correctly. Thank you.
Any questions for the township manager?
I believe the plan is to do it a bid for every other week for continued recycling and then an alternate for every single week in the same bid package. So the idea is well, yeah, I mean, it's obviously more every week. A lot of people want every week. A lot of people want every other week. You build it in your budget, but the intention, I believe, right now is to do every other week as primary bid and alternate to fill in those weeks. And then, so if that's not what the board wants, that's what we need to hear feedback on. Because that's the way it'll be going now.
You need to hear the feedback now, or you need to hear the feedback?
We'll put it
I
in.
think we want to at least bid it whatever ideas we have.
So for the next, whenever it's.
Both
listed on the
ways.
next agenda- or
When it's
the
listed
agenda.
on the next agenda, because it's not on there tonight, but I wanted you to know it's coming so we can get your feedback at that meeting.
And so that contract expires already, so. for
December
next year,
31st of 2020.
2024. And that was a 3-year?
I believe it might have been 3. I think it was a 2-year with an option for the.
3 years.
Comes up quick.
Yeah, it did come up
It
quick.
goes by very quickly.
Any questions for the township manager? Seeing none, we'll move down to payments 9.1. Can I get a motion approving the following funds for duplicate tax payment? $4,642.81 refund for Alfred and Lauren Tedesco at 401 3rd Avenue. $14,422.74 refund to CoreLogic for multiple locations. $1,211.26 refund to Jingjing Zhang and Bing Dong at 21 Green Country Drive. $2,592.20 refund to Kim Harrison at 112 Mason Drive. $874.43 refund to Pemi and Alyssa Chim at 25 Clearbrook Drive.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor San Francisco, seconded by Supervisor Robert Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 9.2, can I get a motion approving the $2,476.80 80% tuition reimbursement payment to Sergeant Daniel Strathy for satisfactorily meeting the spring semester requirements as indicated in the collective bargaining agreement?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Supervisor Robert Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Russo. Is there any board discussion? I'll just note for those wondering that Sergeant Strathy is doing this at the extremely prestigious Westchester University, which only produces the finest of graduates. So just want to make sure everybody was clear on that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. 9.3, can I get a motion approving the $175 refund to Connie Drum for a canceled event due to weather at Drexel Lodge Park?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Section 10, bills, 10.1. I've reviewed the bills and I'll make a motion to approve the bills on check register A dated May 28, 2024, totaling $83,445.54.
Second.
Motion is made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 10.2, I'll make a motion to ratify the bills on EFT Register A dated May 28, 2024, totaling $25,066.59.
Second.
Motion is made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Section 11, new business. 11.1, can I get a motion approving the hiring of Desiree Stevens for the open administrative assistant / office manager position at an annual salary of $63,000 contingent on passing all background checks?
So moved.
So
Motion is
moved.
made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion? Mr. Neese, do you want to add or supplement anything to this?
I don't know that I have anything to add other than just the fact that we had very strong candidates for this position. And I think we're very fortunate to get somebody with this qualification to come in and help us in the office. And we'll be working directly with you as the board, working on your minutes and also your agenda. So I'm very pleased that she'll be coming on.
Any board comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 11.2, can I get a motion approving the hiring of Lisa Savage for the open customer service specialist in the police department at an annual salary of $52,000 contingent on passing all required background checks?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor San Francisco, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? Mr. Neese, do you need to add or supplement anything to this?
I really don't, other than, again, she's a very strong candidate, and I think we're going to be fine that she'll really provide the service we're looking for in the police department.
Perfect. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. 11.3, consider approving the advertisement for a hearing date of June 24th, 2024, associated with the following two historic properties: 28 Paper Mill Road, 120 North Newtown Street Road.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 11.4, can I get a motion approving the advertisement for bids associated with Hansel, Martins, and Valley Forge Road stormwater improvements?
Moved.
Your second.
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 Motion was made by Supervisor San Francisco, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? Mr. Johnson.
Good evening. This project is one we'd actually discussed 2 weeks ago. This is the repair of the failed storm sewer pipe on Hansel Road, on Martins Road, and then also stabilization and installation of some stormwater management along the shoulders of Valley Forge Road.
Perfect. I am actually going to I'm going to ask Supervisor San Francisco, actually, I'm gonna ask Supervisor Roberts Lakehap to retract her second.
Retracting my second.
And Supervisor Chandler, did you second this?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, are you fine with seconding it again?
Yes.
All right, so it's been made by Supervisor San Francisco, seconded by Supervisor Chandless, and Supervisor Roberts Lakehap, I believe you want to say something?
I'm gonna recuse myself because Hansel's on my street and it's right across the street from my house, so I'll recuse myself.
Forgot that when we went through this.
It is in close proximity to her house, yes.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any other board discussion or questions to Mr. Johnson? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any abstentions?
Yes, one.
Any nays? So the motion carries 4-0 with one abstention, that being Supervisor Roberts Lakehap. 11.5, can I get a motion approving the advertisement for bids associated with the St. Albans Circle Area Phase 1 renovations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second. Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Roberts Lakehap, seconded by Supervisor Chandless. Mr. Johnson or Mr. Neese? Whoever wants to explain this. I know we talked about it months ago.
I
but-
think you've talked about this quite a few, or we've talked about this quite a few times with you. You've asked any questions. This is just going out to get bids to see what it will cost to do the work.
Any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. 11.6, can I get a motion approving the contract and authorize the township manager to sign with UniFirst for Public Works uniforms and cleaning rags as approved by the township solicitor?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor San Francisco, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lakehap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. You ready, Tom? Good, Tom. How are you? All right, we will now move down to section 12.1, which is the public hearing for the proposed zoning amendment regarding the C2 commercial districts to permit indoor recreational uses, to permit outdoor recreational uses by conditional use, and to permit a single logistics center in a lifestyle village by conditional use. I will note that the hearing is being opened at 7:43 p.m. on Tuesday, May 28th. Are there any members of the public that are here that will be speaking in favor or against this application? Can you come up to the podium, just state your name and address for the record, sir? I think that's all I need from you right now, Mr. Butler. What we'll do is, I just wanted to, you said 102, right?
Right.
I just wanted to get your name to identify for the stenographer. The way that we're going to do this is I'm going to turn it over to the township solicitor in a moment to go through the legal aspect of this, that it was advertised, it was posted, so on and so forth. Then have him give the opportunity or provide him the opportunity to explain what this ordinance change is going to be. And then we'll have, I'll have you come up and you can provide any public comment that you have. The board can ask questions. And then we'll turn it over to we'll move down to section 13 where we'll close the hearing and then we'll take a vote on it.
Okay.
Right? I just wanted to get your name and address for the record now for the hearing, just so it's clear. All right, anyone else from the public that are here to speak in favor or against the ordinance? All right, Mr. Sikora, floor is yours.
Okay, this is an ordinance that was before you for review several months ago. You authorized it to be forwarded to the Planning Commission and the Delaware County Planning Department, and you authorized the advertising after that review for consideration for adoption of the ordinance. It's a zoning ordinance regarding C2 districts in the township. I think there's only one C2 district at the moment, but you can always do map amendments to make different C2 districts. The C2 districts, it's a form of a commercial district. It has to have a certain size. And then in that commercial C2 district, it doesn't exist in C1 districts, is this concept of a lifestyle village that if it's developed a certain way, it has different development standards. There have been identified need within the town for some logistics type space The township was very concerned about, just large warehouses changing the complexion of the township, but also recognizing the need for, smaller business to have some flexibility to be able to conduct business in our town. And so the idea, and also some other types of uses that weren't specifically called out in our zoning ordinance that township staff or different folks, presented to the township, different ideas as to beneficial uses that are provided for where there's larger areas of land such as sports facilities. Okay. And so the amendment to the C2 district and specifically the lifestyle village district within the C2 district was presented to you, reviewed by the PC. So the changes are, generally speaking, it allows in the lifestyle village portion of a C2 district, lifestyle village has to be at least 50 acres. And if you're going to add a logistics center use, it's a single use in the district, it would have to be 55 acres. So it doesn't take away, it doesn't make smaller that 50-acre type use that was envisioned, but it still has to have this contiguous 55 acres to include this logistics center. There will only be one. There's a series of criteria on how to control that logistics center by size, no bigger than 80,000 square feet. Appearance, it has to look a certain way, hours of operation, idling of trucks, and such. That logistics center meaning warehouse, packaging, distribution, stuff like that for a business. The other, these recreational / sports uses are other uses that township identified as having some benefit to the township and its residents, not specifically provided for. So indoor facilities would be permitted within the district, and exterior like fields and things like that would be that take up a little more space, little more noise, a little more light issues would be by conditional use as well. So logistics center by conditional use, single in a lifestyle village, and then these recreational / sports facilities permitted indoors, outdoors, conditional use. And then there's a series of different kinds of criteria that help flesh that out. This was recommended. It was advertised in the newspaper for this evening for this hearing on May 14th and May 21st. So that's our two successive advertising notices. It was posted, even though it's not technically a map change. It doesn't hurt to post the property, so we did that as well. There's a picture of the posting, which will mark the legal notice as Township 1, and we'll mark the picture of the posting as Township 2. The Township Planning Commission reviewed this on April 25th, 2024, and they just simply recommended approval. The Delaware County Planning Department reviewed it on May 17th, 2024, and had some modest comments. They were concerned about one comment that talked about most zoning ordinances don't call out land development and subdivision necessity. That's dealt with in the subdivision and land development code. This specifically said when you come before the board with a lifestyle village, essentially any construction would require a land development plan. It was put into this ordinance that unless waived by the Board of Supervisors, we have waived land development in very limited circumstances where something is considered so minor that we didn't want to have. For instance, there's an existing patio where a restaurant exists, and they serve customers at that existing patio. And then the landowner wants to come in and construct a rooftop over top of that patio. Well, the case law says that's not really land development. So that's something where we would probably waive land development. They would still come in before the board to request that waiver and then any concerns that the board have. So that's why that waiver language was put in. I think the Delaware County Planning Department was concerned. We were saying, oh, well, we could just waive. We're giving ourselves somehow the ability to waive large scale development, or I just don't think that's an issue, but we could always address that if you felt you needed to. The other thing is the Delaware County Planning Department did have some ideas regarding, I would say, the scalability of particular uses to the size of the land around it, rather than just square footage limitations. And I think that's a good idea. something to discuss. It's an adjustment we can always make. That's just not something we were prepared here to. I know the board had a interest in, keeping these types of things moving. And I guess the modern trend is not trying to swallow the elephant in one bite. Right, we're trying to, just address things with smaller bites to keep things moving. So that's something that I do think they have a very good idea about. We can address further, but I don't know if it has to be addressed today.
Can you just give me, can you, sorry, go ahead.
Can you just repeat that again? I'm sorry about the, about this. Yeah, no, the square footage, the recommendation.
Yeah, well, I can read it.
Is that the staff recommendations about the staff notes, the definition of lifestyle village as a cap?
Yes.
Instead, yes, has a cap. Sorry.
Okay. You want me to just read that?
Can you just explain that again, Rich?
Yeah. As a cap for retail uses of 65,000 square feet. Instead, and similar to how the logistics center is addressed, it is recommended that retail be afforded a maximum percentage of the site building coverage, allowing it to scale proportionately to the size of the overall development. The scale requirement can be in addition to the 65,000 square foot cap. I think they're talking about ratios in relation to, the size around it and the area around it. And at least that's what I understand it to be.
Right, so, can I ask questions about this now? So the thing is that the percentage, is it the percentage of the whole property, or is it just like if someone comes in and does a subdivision? Is it on the subdivision, or is it on if somebody comes in with 100 acres and you can do a percentage? The percentage is different. Let's say it's 20%, right, for math, because I'm not good at math. So you can do 20, if it's 100-acre site, 20% would be a smaller, am I right with percentages? Would be a smaller building on 100. No, it would be a bigger building on 100.
I'm not exactly sure where you're going with it. I think I understand what you're saying.
I'm trying to keep someone from getting around by not doing a subdivision, or, you know what I'm trying to say
You
now?
have to stay. Right, so there's a cap right now in this ordinance of any retail building at 65,000 square feet tops. That's a big, so you don't want the huge.
Yeah,
big
that's
box
too
stuff.
big too. I'm not
But-
happy with
but,
65,000,
Right,
but
but supermarkets, they typically need a lot of space nowadays, right? So right now.
some do, some don't. I don't agree with that, but
Well, that's,
I'm not
so-
arguing with you.
I understand.
I know where we got here, and so I'm just,
Well, and this
stating
is, like I said, something that could be constantly revisited and looked at,
Yes.
right? What is the size, the maximum size in your consultancy? You can use what is it that you want to do to promote responsible development within the township, not make it something that you don't want. You also keep the community.
so we don't have to talk about the percentages now on that.
Well,
because we're
this is
just-
what, right, but they're suggesting that we address that, and I think, it's always good to address that.
What are they, so based off of based off that comment from the planning commission, just so I'm clear, because I think you're about to answer it. Are they suggesting that we increase it? Are they saying that we
No.
keep it the same as what we're?
No.
Okay, so what are
No,
they
they're
saying?
saying that in addition to just a square footage cap, they also look at area, land
Yeah.
areas and also regulate it by percentage of land area.
Rich, so can I ask a question? So I'm understanding that to mean that they're suggesting that we make it more restrictive, basically, that there are two things you would have to meet. It couldn't be more than 65,000. And also it couldn't be more than a certain percentage.
They don't specify that. I mean, I'd imagine that's the way you'd want to do that.
I mean, I don't think that's a bad idea. I don't know that.
But
Does
I don't think it is a bad idea.
From a operational perspective, Rich, if we wanted to make that change, as Catherine, Supervisor Chandler said, if it's something that makes it more restrictive, that we have more control over what's happening there, or not more control, but just more restrictive, so that we're not getting things that we don't want. in terms of process, would we be able to make that change now, or do we have to go and re-advertise this again?
You'd have to send it back to the planning department, re-advertise.
What's on, and I apologize, I should know this, but so what is it now? There is nothing.
65,000 square feet.
Okay.
Is what is in the ordinance.
That's the language of the work that's being proposed tonight,
That's right.
65,000. But what is it without, let's say we weren't doing this and we were just having a conversation about the
I don't know
lifestyle
that there
village.
is a maximum.
Okay.
I don't know that there is a maximum.
Okay.
So then by approving this tonight, we would be, just correct me if I'm wrong, we would be making at least some restrictions in there since there is no maximum now.
Correct.
And we could come back.
Right
Pretty
now, they
much
could
is-
go over 60. Right now, in a C2 district, you could go in a lifestyle village, you can go over 65,000 square feet.
Right. So if we approve this tonight, we're putting
Now
some
they can't go
restriction
over-
in.
Then you can't go over 65,000.
Right. And then we could come back pretty much immediately as long as we follow the whatever process you tell us we have to follow to put those additional restrictions in.
You have absolute right to continue to do fact finding, consult with experts, and make evaluations as to responsible land use planning for all your districts. And you don't have to do it all at once, and you can do it in succession.
So, I mean, just for what it's worth, I think we should, approve the cap tonight, but also pretty much immediately look into what sort of percentage restriction we also want to put on that.
Okay.
And then I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, you're
mean-
fine. No,
I
you're not
didn't-
cutting me off.
I didn't, yeah, sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to make you stop talking. And then, the language, then can we come back and take the recommendation on the language on the, waivers?
We did take that out, didn't we?
It's still in there. I mean, it's not hurting anything. You're not gonna waive anything that is land. Right, if it's not waivable, it shouldn't be waived, you're not gonna waive it. I mean, we waive land development now if it's appropriate, and typically it's not, but sometimes it is. But you can take that language out without re-advertising if you want.
Okay, well,
It doesn't cause me-
because we're not making it for this board, we're making ordinances for subsequent boards that follow us, so if it's,
Right,
we
so
would-
normally you would follow your subdivision and land development ordinance, the municipality's planning code.
okay,
For some reason, the existing ordinance in here called out the existing, right, the one that was already there.
yeah,
Zoning ordinance had this provision that said you got to come in with the land development plan for any type of adjustment
okay.
or any type of.
I just thought if
even
we're
if it
making
wouldn't
another
otherwise
change.
Even
then-
if it wouldn't otherwise qualify for the land development process.
Right, okay,
So we could take that out if you'd like, or you could just leave it in because a responsible board wouldn't waive land development if it shouldn't be waived.
In terms of that process, if we were to take that language out tonight, because it's a deletion and not an addition, we wouldn't have to go through the whole re-advertising.
Well,
That's how I would argue it.
yes, and that's what I would say. Not, you wouldn't take out that whole paragraph, just that one
Yep.
proposed revision. You can take that right out, strike it. It's not fundamentally changing what the relief is before.
Okay. Are there any other questions before I turn it over to the public? And we'll start with Mr. Butler. But are there any other
Oh,
questions?
I
from the board?
I do have a question. Why is it when we, advertise this, I'm sorry, it sounds like a stupid question, but when we advertise this, we only had, we only indicated to permit indoor recreational and to permit outdoor recreational. How come, is it because we've added a use? I'm not sure. And then the other changes that we made aren't I'm not sure. Can you explain to me why, how it's advertised that way?
I gotta pull it up.
Proposed zoning text amendment regarding C2 commercial districts to permit indoor recreational uses, to permit outdoor recreational uses, but it doesn't say that we've limited the retail and that this is for the logistics center.
Hey, look,
A dumb question, but.
that's not a dumb question. Yeah, the advertising says, the title of the ordinance is an ordinance to amend the code of the township. This is what's advertised. By adding indoor recreation use.
First couple lines.
No,
It took no, I meant on the agenda. I didn't understand
oh,
why it was
yeah, I don't,
the first few lines. That's all. Now I understand
gotcha.
that it was all on here in the ad.
This
So
was,
thank
yeah,
you.
this was advertised for the logistics center. Also, what
My
happens
fault.
is, you
It's
know,
my fault. I didn't look at anything this way.
the ordinance itself is rather lengthy.
Yeah,
So if you have a very short ordinance, you just publish the ordinance in the newspaper. If it's really long, you can do a summary of the ordinance and then make it available for inspection at the township building, at the newspaper, and at the law library. So that's what we did.
okay, thank you. I was not as prepared as I usually am for this, so I
That's
apologize.
that's a very good question. I wanted to make sure it was advertised properly, because if it
Okay.
wasn't, we'd have to address that. We wouldn't go forward if it wasn't. It was advertised properly, just the agenda item just didn't, but the ordinance itself has been advertised, posted, and available for inspection.
Mhm.
So notwithstanding the fact that perhaps in the agenda it left off a word, that shouldn't be a problem for us.
Great, thank you.
Okay,
So it would be up to you to ask any further questions or put it to the public. This is a legislative hearing, so it's not a quasi judicial hearing where somebody has to establish standing. It's a legislative hearing, so anybody can come up, whether they live close by or not. So as they're residents or, stakeholders, property owners in the township, they can come up and give their input.
perfect. Mr. Butler.
I'm more concerned what I hear. I have the Delaware County Planning Review, and it sounds like the supervisors haven't gotten it. And that concerns me. In the planning meeting, I think there was about 5 minutes discussion. I haven't been around to know what happened on the past. But I do have a concern about logistics center. It's 80,000 square feet. It's over 2 acres of, close to 2 acres of building area, like a football and a half. It adds traffic. You're talking about tractor trailers, 53-foot tractor trailers going in there. I looked at the parking. It doesn't sound like there's enough parking to park trucks outside. Because it more or less talks in the ordinance about probably vehicle parking rather than truck parking. Trucks on Westchester Pike is already a traffic nightmare. So we're going to be adding commercial trucks in that area. 80,000 is a fair amount of area. Square footage, you can have a building 4 feet high, have 4 stories high. A lot of these warehouses have elevators to store material higher. So they don't have, they may store them 4 stories high inside a building. It does, because you talk about square footage of floor area, but it's the equivalent of 4 stories in 80,000 square feet. And I think there was an article in the Inquirer today about the warehouses that are popping up. There's a lot of feedback about pollution and truck traffic. And I just think there hasn't been enough input on this. The Delaware County Planning did make suggestions. They asked basically that it be returned to them for a complete review. And that it sounds like you're doing piecemeal here. And I don't see the rush that it has to be done tonight. I would like to see you follow their suggestion and return it to the county after you make the additions. It's not, once you pass this, somebody can come in with a permit tomorrow and do what they want. And they are concerned about the discretionary in there. They want the land development not to be discretionary. And I don't know why it's in there that way. So I would like to put a copy of the county planning agenda to the court reporter to make it part of the record. And really, the board should get these reviews as part of the agenda, and apparently that hasn't happened.
Well, that's not accurate, Mr.
No,
Miller.
I apologize that I was not prepared for this. So I was on vacation. I didn't see it. So that was me. They do distribute this weeks in advance. And it did, and
Could have
then,
been weeks in advance because it wasn't finalized until May 17th.
yeah, well, it's a week. It's a week, sorry. Usually we get these, we
Okay.
get them as soon as we get them,
Okay.
as soon as they release them.
So what I'll say, and I don't mean to cut you off, Mr. Butler, but what I was going to just add is the board has been provided in our packet, the review letter dated May 17th from the planning commission. As you know, I just want to make it clear for the people who might not have looked at it online. There's not a lot of information provided in these review letters. Planning commission is purely a advisory board, whether it's the township level or at the county level. But I do want to just make clear, again, for those who might be listening that aren't familiar with these review letters, it's not as if they give you a playbook to go by. It is purely recommendations that they provide and a high-level overview of the actual ordinance or change that is being proposed. Nonetheless, your point is taken. And again, the board does have a copy of that May 17th letter that was published not only on the public agenda, but also provided to the Board of Supervisors in our packet as well. We have that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can attach both we can attach both the DCPD review letter and the planning commission review letter, which were already identified.
Okay. Rich, do you want to address anything on that, or do we just need to?
No, I mean, I think, you know, the the Delaware County Planning Department had no comments with respect to the logistics center. It was the two issues that my understanding, the two issues that we already discussed, which is the waiver of the ability to waive land development when the board thinks it's appropriate in accordance with, you know, the law. But we could always just take that specific amendment out, right? Just strike that and pass it without that. It's a separate. Yeah, we could always just take that one proposed revision out. Like I said, it's very unusual for a zoning ordinance to require land development. You have a land development code that does that, right?
Mhm.
So it was just a revision to make sense of something that ordinarily wouldn't be in a zoning code. Okay, but it's not heartburn for me if you take that out. Number two, it was the scalability of retail uses, not height of buildings or size of logistics center or area of logistics center or parking for trucks. I think you want to minimize the amount of trucks. I think there's a reason you don't want too much truck parking. But there was nothing about logistics center use in that Delaware County Planning Department review. It was the scalability of retail, which we already said we want to talk about in the future, in the near future, and then two, the that waiver language.
Yeah. And I just want to be clear. I want to get clarification. And I think Supervisor Chandler did a good job of fleshing this out, but I just want to ask it again, just for my own edification. So currently right now, if someone wanted to file something, there is no restriction to that 65,000 square feet in that lifestyle village. Is that
There
correct?
is.
There is.
65,000. We put the.
No, that's what this is what this draft ordinance is
Correct.
doing. Correct. If this draft ordinance was never discussed.
Correct.
Someone could come in for 80,000 square feet. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, because there is no restriction. So this will place a restriction
That's why we
on
put
that
it in.
size. That's number one. Number two, I just want to be clear. Do we allow for a logistics center or a logistics type use anywhere in our zoning code right now?
Not that I'm aware.
Not that we're aware of. So this essentially could address any of those concerns that could arise from that as well.
That's right. I mean, are you aware of any logistics?
I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, this concept was created with this definition, we created it. But right, somebody could come in and argue a de facto exclusion for a legal use if you don't provide for it within your township. So this is a way to control future development. Another way to control future development by being ahead of the curve and having a use that you've identified and allow for it within your township.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Sikora? All right, so at this point, we'll close if there is none. Well, I will note that the exhibits that have been marked Township 1 through Township 3, which have been marked by the solicitor with the addition of Township 3 of the Delaware County Planning Review Letter of May 17th, will be admitted into the record if there's no objection. Seeing none, they are admitted. At this point, I will close this hearing at 8:11 PM. Do we have to vote on the record? Okay.
At the conclusion of the hearing, you resume your ordinary meeting and then you take your vote.
Perfect. The hearing is closed. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
It's always a good job. Tom.
Good job.
So you now get to,
Yeah.
once the hearing closed, you get to consider it. You don't have to consider it now. You could, you've advertised that you're going to consider it, but you don't have to make a decision tonight. If you didn't want to, you can say yes, you can say no, you can make that one change that we talked about, or you can punt it for future consideration.
Okay. What's the board's will here? Anyone from the board?
Say we move forward. Ordinance. Have something and then revise later when we see we need to.
Rich, where in the ordinance, the draft ordinance that's proposed, can you just show me where the actual language is that the planning commission took issue with? Is it the,
And site review.
the -79?
172-79 site review. It's probably 2/3, 3/4 of the way down. I can just read it to you.
Yeah, what paragraph number or letter?
A,
Oh, A.
172-79 site review, A.
In a C2 commercial
Yes,
district?
Yes, sir.
So the language they took issue with is unless waived by the Board of Supervisors due to the limited scope of the proposed development.
Right, because what the language that was already in there said, including the erection of any building or in addition to any building. And like I said, an addition can be a closet. It can be
An overhang.
an overhang, right? Like I said, there's case law specifically where people, I didn't pick the example of the restaurant out of a hat. There's a Pennsylvania Supreme Court case where a restaurant wanted to put an overhang over an existing patio where they're already feeding customers. The township said, you got to go through land development, and the Supreme Court said, you can't do that. That's not land development. We usually, as a matter of course, don't make that decision at the staff level. What we do is say, people come in and say, we don't think this is land development. And our zoning officer takes a look at that, and he's pretty tight on that. And usually what happens is we say, well, go in and ask for a waiver. So we don't have to, at the staff level, make the decision as to whether it broached into land development or didn't broach into land development, because it gives you that. And when they come in for a waiver, it still gives you some level of, compromise with the landowner typically. So we've been successful using the waiver process as opposed to the staff writing a letter saying, well, we don't think it's land development. We think it is land development. Where does it cross the line?
All right, so I heard from Supervisor San Francisco, Supervisor Chandler, Supervisor Russo. What are your thoughts? You want to take a vote tonight? Do you want to hold off?
No, I want to go forward.
You want to make any changes to it, Mike?
No, whatever was discussed that we already have the control on the trucking by not having all the parking, and we're controlling the future warehouses from coming in. That's most important to me.
Supervisor Chandler?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with Mike, but I do want to make sure that we can move pretty quickly to come back and look at additional restrictions that we can put on this.
Anything else to add?
No, nothing else to add.
Supervisor Chandler, do you want to make any changes, or do you want to? Or you just answer that question? I apologize. My apologies.
I mean, the waiver process that Rich was talking about, which is in there now, right?
Amendment,
In the proposed amendment that we're considering tonight, it's in there.
yes.
Okay.
And Delaware County Planning Department said, we'll take that out to the extent it's not consistent with the municipality's planning code.
Okay, but that would have made it, I think, somewhat less restrictive, right? Because it would have made it easier.
No, what would happen is if somebody comes in to put on a 2-foot portico over their front door, they got to come in for land development. So
We
it's,
we already have that protection in place through our subdivision, right? Through the zoning.
I mean, frankly, upon reflection, what I would have done is just taken out this entire sentence. It's just not needed. We require land development for all developments in our township. But I'm not going to remove that now. It's substantially changing the ordinance.
But if we take out the proposed language, it's not substantially changing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, there's no reason to have, I don't think, in an ordinance, in a zoning ordinance, in a paragraph that says, well, you have to go through land development for land development. We already have a land development
Yeah.
ordinance.
Doesn't really matter.
Doesn't add anything, right? So it's just, I was just trying to make it.
As is, it doesn't, not gonna affect anything.
No, other than now there's in the zoning ordinance, if somebody wants to waive land development, now they got to go to the Board of Supervisors and the zoning board. So it's just we're just adding a draw on township resources for little gain, but it just doesn't, it's not that big of an issue. Frankly, I mean, I don't have heartburn either way, whatever.
From a legal perspective, you don't have any issue with it?
I do not have an issue for it. It's going to be legal with it in, it's going to be legal with it out.
I would just leave it in then.
Any other board discussion? Okay. 13.1, can I get a motion approving ordinance 2024-06 zoning code text amendment regarding C2 commercial districts to permit indoor recreational uses, to permit outdoor recreational uses by conditional use, and to permit a single logistics center and a lifestyle village by conditional use?
So moved.
Is
Second,
there a second? Motion was made by Supervisor San Francisco, seconded by Supervisor Caruso. Is there any further board discussion? The only thing that makes me inclined to honestly support this would be the fact that we are allowing for the use and it would give us control over it. But I do have concerns overall about what that, I think that we've built in some protections for the logistics center so that we have control. We're not going to have, it's small in scale. It's we're not looking at something that would be like an Amazon or any of those big warehouses. From a zoning and land use perspective, from a legal perspective, I'm comfortable with it, but I don't know. I think my issue was more going.
we're never going to get a big warehouse in town. We're never going to get a big warehouse in town because where they put the big warehouses are where properties are usually blighted, properties are usually have environmental issues, or properties are usually very inexpensive. Our town, the cost basis for the land is way too high. This is probably a one of in a million years. And that's speaking from someone that's done almost 3 million square feet of warehousing.
Any other board discussion? All's in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All's opposed?
Aye.
So that was, Mike, you were voting in favor of it, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. So all those in favor, there was 4, I'll vote and against, so the chair will vote no, so it'll go 4-1. Down to section 14, board comment. Is there any board comment? Any-
Nice job on the bingo night the other night with Firehouse.
Yeah,
Excellent
that's
job.
fun.
Yeah. Any public comment? Mr. Glazer?
Good evening, Nathan Glazer, 3538 Cayley Road. I'm going to try to be short because I've already said this once before to prior incarnations of the board. The board tonight dealt with 2 hiring matters. The board has no business hiring individual candidates. We retain a professional, competent manager, and this task should stay within the realm of the professional manager. Now, the township in the past has done this. It continues to this day, obviously, and the hirings have been often politicized and often inept. And we've paid, and the residents have paid because we brought people in who really shouldn't have been here. And we go through a cycle of hiring and dismissal, and that's wrong. Modern American corporations, large organizations, small ones too, retain managers because hiring has to be done following a very broad set of rules. And I continue to argue it does not belong in front of the board because the board has made the big decision, which is hiring a township manager. Emphasis on the word manager, because staffing is part of what managers do. That's why they are contracted. That's why they exist in organizations. And the board goes through this exercise every time. I think it's nothing more than just political preening, that we're hiring people. You don't really need to be in it. Write job descriptions, approve the budget, that all makes sense, but then delegate, whether it's to the chief of police, whether it's to the township manager or public works, to let them deal with the mechanics of this.
Mr. Glazer, I never engage in a back and forth because I believe that public comment is public comment, but I do take issue with the fact that I do believe in your comments, whether intended or not, you just slated the professional staff that we have here in the township by alleging even the smallest increment that they somehow engage in some sort of political doings by hiring individuals, whether it be for public works, whether it be for the police department, whether it be for the office manager, or anything like that. It is my information and belief, based off of those ignorant comments that you just made there, respectfully, someone who I have respect for, you have no idea or understanding of the process in which this township undertook the hiring of these individuals. I think that your comments are defamatory, and I think they're slanderous to those individuals who spent a long time going through resume after resume after resume, interviewing individual after individual after individual to ensure that the character of the person that they brought before this board tonight, as we ratified them, which every municipality that I have been before in my professional job as a zoning and land use attorney, which brings me across this Commonwealth. I sit through thousands of meetings a year of board of commissioners and supervisors and boroughs where they do exactly what we did right here tonight. Because let's face it, yes, we have a manager, but it is our responsibility to ratify the hiring of those personnel, whether it's a township such as the second class or any other township inside this Commonwealth. So again, I'm not going to engage in a back and forth, but I think that those comments were extremely inappropriate when you have no basis to, one, make them, or two, any understanding or familiarity with the process that they just engaged in.
My basis is I've watched this township function. I've been in meetings here for over 30 years, and I've seen it. And as I said, you know, previous incarnations of the board, I simply take a philosophical position that that is not the best way to run an organization. If it's done, it's done. Yeah, I'm simply saying that it should not, the individual hiring should not devolve to this point. The managers that are retained should be doing that. That's the sole basis. And again, that is basically the structure that corporate America follows. And for the most part, it has seemed to work favorably. There's no defamation here.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other public comment? Mr. Butler.
Since you're making a bid package for recycling,
Sorry, Mr. Butler, can you just do, I know we got it for
Okay.
tonight, just your name.
John Butler, 102 Hunters Run. Since you're doing a bid package for recycling, the real issue that goes on is the towns don't see what they're getting for the recycling material, because most of the contracts are now shared income. Basically, what the commodity is worth, the hauler and the township share the income or the expense. So I would like to see something in the bid package that requires whoever's awarded the contract to at least give a monthly report on the value of the material. Because no town that I know of is getting that. The other issue is the items that are going to be recycled. Right now, there's an Act 101 that hasn't been updated. And most of the MRFs, which is a material recovery facility, are not recycling glass. It's being used as landfill cover. If you read Act 101, it is not allowed to be used for performance grants. I think every town in Delaware County is using it. If it's challenged, there's something you would lose that income. And it really should be recycled and not used for landfill cover. You are concerned about more uses. What I'm saying in Upper Darby, I think in Haverford, and you ride down the street, you see all these vape shops setting up. And they're passing ordinances restricting the number that can go up. They have to be maybe 1,000 feet away from each other. They have to be a certain distance from schools. And I see over in New Jersey, most of the vape shops are now selling marijuana. And there's a good chance marijuana is going to be legal in the state. And I just don't think we need a vape shop on every corner. And you have a chance now to put some kind of restriction on them. The other thing is I talked to the chair about billboards. And I know that came up in the planning meeting. Somebody made a comment. Do we have an area in this town for billboards? Yes.
Yeah, so continue the public comment.
No, that's it.
Okay.
I would just like to know if we have an area somewhere. Since, I was fighting that for over 10 years, billboards.
So I normally don't engage in a back and forth, but since I made the exception for Mr. Glazer, I will state that my understanding, and I don't practice in Newtown Township, but my understanding is that we do have an area in our zoning code that allows for billboards. Light industrial district. Thank you, Mr. Sikora.
Okay.
Or exactly what the issue is, right? For anyone, exclusionary zoning, right? That's, you got to build in those uses to protect the township and protect the municipality. There's a lot of other things in our zoning ordinance that I think people will clutch their pearls at if they knew, but you have to have them in there so that you are prepared for it, in the event that goodness that ever comes to fruition. Thank you, Mr. Butler. Any other public comment? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.